Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's TheSketchMonkey here. I'm back here at Urban Motors to have a look at something pretty special today. You might think this is just your average Bronco, but it's actually not. This is a Badlands with the 7-speed manual transmission with a little C on the gear shifter, which means crawl gear. So this has a very unique transmission in this. So what do we have under the hood? We have a 2.3 liter inline 4, 300 horsepower and 325 pound-feet of torque. It's for sale right here at Urban Motors right now for just under 60 grand. So what we're gonna have a look at in this video is, of course, I'm sure you know the drill by now. We're gonna have a look at the front, side, rear, interior, and then we're gonna take this beauty for a drive. So this design is about, I would say, 3 years old now, but every time I see one of these out on the streets, I'm still blown away by the design of this thing. This is a design where it feels like the designers of Ford had a lot of fun sketching this up, taking inspiration from the first 1967 Bronco, which came in a pickup version as well, which would be interesting to see. Maybe we're gonna do a redesign of this and turn it into a pickup truck in this video. But what I love about this design is the retro inspired feel that we have across the entire car. Just look at the sketches from the Ford design team. You can see the expression and the fun that they have when they were developing this car. It would be a dream project as a designer to work on this new Bronco. So in the front end, of course, we have this grille that is grayed out. You can have this in black as well. I've seen it in almost gloss black on the Everglades, for example, have that. And you have this full LED headlights with the round circular simple design with a light LED indicator light that just cuts right into it. And what I love about this is that it continues into the Bronco letters in the same height. This being the Sasquatch package, I do love the big white fenders that we have going all around this truck with the 35-inch tires. More on that when we look at the side view. Overall, I think this front end, it perfectly modernizes the original Bronco design. We have these hooks here, which you can, I guess, keep in this position if you want to, but it looks a lot better folded down. And then you have the fog lights down here with this big, sturdy metal bumper to tackle those trails, and you have a proper skid plate underneath. So this vintage styling that we have all across the front end. I also, by the way, like that we have this Bronco in white to set it off in contrast with the gray grille. But look at the beautiful sculpting of this hood as well. It brings back that 70s feel to a modern truck, and I absolutely love everything they did in the front end, but also the side and the rear. This is one of these trucks that I would love to own myself with the 7-speed manual transmission, which we're gonna have a look at when we take this for a drive. Coming around to the side view of the Bronco, there's so much to talk about here. And one fun detail about the new Bronco is I don't think Ford cared too much about how much the fender design of the new Bronco was going to cost, because we have 4 different fender styles of the new Bronco. This is, of course, a Sasquatch, meaning you have 35-inch tires with the 17-inch wheels with the beadlock capability down here, and you also have the wider fenders here. So that's one version of the fenders. And then you have the base, which looks pretty similar to this, with a round circular feel like this, but it is a lot smaller, not as wide as this, because you have 33-inch tires there. But the third option is the Everglades option, which has another design than these. And of course, you have the fourth, which they went completely nuts with the design and added some dual action fenders on the Ford Bronco Raptor. There are a couple of lines on the side view here that probably not a lot of people are gonna notice, but I noticed immediately the first time I saw the production version of the Bronco, and that is the shoulder line. So you see this one right here going from the front end all the way to the back above the door handles. You have the same treatment down here. What's so special about this shoulder line is that if you look at 60s, maybe it's late 60s, 70s, early 80s cars, this is a very normal and common looking shoulder line where it goes inwards and carves out instead of it having be just a corner here. So this is one of these details that if you were to just take a snapshot of, for example, this section here, I would instantly think that this is a 70s car just by looking at the shoulder line. It's details like that that I personally appreciate with the design, and also again shows that the design team had a lot of fun taking inspiration from the earlier decades, implementing it into the Bronco. So when it comes to trim levels, this is the Badlands version. You can see the big sticker right here. Maybe it's not a sticker, it's just a badge on the side. Looking pretty cool. I like that they have different designs of stickers or badges for every single trim piece. And of course, you can see here the big, beautiful 35-inch tires with the 17-inch wheels. The thing is, if you look at the base, I think the base itself feels pretty good proportionally with the 33-inch tires. And I'm really glad though that they decided to put 35 from factory when you go, of course, with the Sasquatch package. And this is also the soft top, so you don't have the hard top on this specific one, but you do have this big roll cage, which is body colored up here. One final detail on the side is this rock slider here. This is one of the best integrations of a rock slider I think I've ever seen. It just feels like it's part of the overall design of this thing. And we also have the plastic, not body colored door handles, which personally, I don't mind that. I think this also has to do with bringing back some of the 70s and 60s feels. To have some exposed plastic pieces like this doesn't bother me at all. Coming around to the rear and the design of the Bronco Badlands with the Sasquatch package, I love that you have a full spare size tire here, and this must weigh like 100 pounds, which means that these hinges needs to be pretty sturdy if they want to hold this thing up. But what I love about this rear end is its simplicity. Same thing here, very simple to use, and then you open this up and you see how the entire wheel and door swings up like this. Very beautifully done. You don't have the glass top opening like this that we have in the hardtop, since of course we don't have a hardtop on this one. It's just a soft top. I also like this color, looks good. It has this retro vibe to it as well, and that in combination with the styling cues and the proportions of this thing is just such a good design, this Bronco. Up here we have the brake lights just saying hello, peeping up right here above the spare tire, because this is mandatory, you need to have it here. So I guess this is the integration that they went with. Looks pretty good, I don't care about that. If you gotta have it there, that's probably the only way to do it. Quickly have a look at this integration of the LED tail lights. The light settings here, you can have the Bronco with just bulb non-LED lights, both front and rear. But that's one thing that I would like to always have updated if you're gonna do a retro design like this. So I would definitely go with the LED full lights all around. I like that they didn't make this entirely square, so you have this corner being cut off to add a little bit of fun for the designers to have this cut off. This is a pretty interesting bumper design that we have here, because up top is plastic, down here it's metal. So we have two different materials on the same bumper. I'm not entirely sure why. Probably to have, I guess the grip would be the same if you have metal up here and metal down here, but maybe for saving weight or something like that. Then you have the parking sensors integrated in the metal part. We only have parking sensors on the rear on this specific Bronco because this is the mid package, which also has some changes to the interior. Welcome to the interior of the Ford Bronco Badlands Sasquatch package. And as I said, this is the mid package, which means we don't have the full-size 12-inch gauge cluster. Do I care? No, this is totally fine for me to have the 8-inch, big enough for me and whatever I need to use that for. But we still have the digital gauge cluster, or at least part of it, because the gauge cluster design here is very interesting. You have a chrome circle going around the static or analog speedometer, and then you have a like 70% of this entire gauge cluster is made up of this screen in the middle. It's a pretty unique integration. I don't think I've ever seen that before. And of course, down here you have 3 pedals and the manual gearbox, which has a pretty interesting letter to it that I haven't seen in a gear shifter before, and that is C. So if you lift this up, you go into the reverse, and if you lift it up and go down, you go into crawling gear, which is super cool because it's a much lower ratio than first gear, and it allows you to go in at a speed of 1 mile per hour with the clutch fully disengaged for crawling over those nasty trails. And up here you have the buttons for the sway bar disconnect. You have the locking front and rear differential, traction control on, off, and the hazards. You don't get this trail turn assist with a manual, but I'm not sure if I will ever use that. It feels like a bit of a gimmicky thing. Look at the integration of the air vents here. How cool are these? The whole thing just swivels when you move it, and it's super easy to see exactly where the air is going to be shot out from, and that's what I like. You have an analog version of a air vent like this. Super easy to use, perfect. Down here you have the physical buttons for, of course, the radio, the tuning, and the climate control. You do get, with the mid package, you do get dual zone climate control, which is nice to have. And I also love, of course, that these are analog buttons. The dash itself, I love this chamfer that we have here. So you see this stamped Bronco in the dash itself. These sturdy handles that you have here for when you're going off-road and need to hold on to something. And then you have this chamfer where the vents sit. It's a beautiful little design. It feels like the vents are kind of pushed into the dash and carved out these pieces. And up top is very rugged material, hard plastic. It's what you want. You don't want fancy leathers in here. You want something rugged that is very easy to clean off, and so are these gorgeous seats as well. You can just hose these off. Feels still very solid and very high quality with this yellow stitching that we have going around it, and the Bronco logo right here in the backrest. Moving down, further down here, you have a USB slot, regular USB, USB-C behind this little door. You have the goat mode selector right here with 4-wheel low, 2-wheel high or 4-wheel high, and the hill descent control, 4-wheel drive automatic, and of course the shifter right here. You don't have any wireless charging in this specific Bronco Badlands, but I believe it would be right here if you decide to option for that. Something that I would probably option for because it's such a useful feature to have. You have 2 cup holders here. You have the mirror adjustment buttons right here, along with the window controls in the center, since you can remove these doors. So obviously you don't want to have to mess around with wires and stuff if you're going to remove the doors. Everything is positioned right here, along with 2 cup holders and a pretty decent, I mean, it's pretty small for an American car, but it feels like you can fit whatever you need in the armrest storage with this little compartment that you can just pop off and put whatever you want in. And inside here you also have a cigarette outlet. The gauge cluster feels pretty well integrated in the dash. It does have a bit of a cap. I would like to have it extend a little further than this, because every single car that I've driven so far that doesn't have a cap for the gauge cluster, when it's sunny out like it is right now, and specifically if you have the roof off like we do have now, you're gonna have a lot of glare in both the gauge cluster and the infotainment screen. But thankfully both of these now have some sort of cap around it to protect it a little bit from the glare of the sun. And up here you have all these auxiliary switches which you can hook up to whatever you want. A train horn, for example, why not? You can have some light bars and stuff like that and just plug it in up here. Very convenient. So we talked about half of the interior. We still have the back seat. So let's jump in there and check out the headroom and the legroom. Okay guys, jumping into the back seat of the Ford Bronco, and I have to say it is pretty tight back here. I'm 6'1". Knees are kind of not, if I'm going to sit comfortably, yes, I'm going to sit like this with my knees outside of the seat, but if I sit straight, they almost hit the front seat in front of me. You do have this wire mesh here which you can attach whatever you want to, in addition to this little compartment down here. Headroom, infinite. Down in the center, you do have some charging capabilities with 2 USB, 1 USB normal and 1 USB-C, and a 12-volt house outlet, and you also have these switches for the windows of the passenger row back here. We've talked about the exterior design, the gorgeous, beautiful exterior of this Bronco, and the gorgeous interior as well. So let's fire this up and let's hear what this 4-cylinder really sounds like. Alright guys, we're taking the Ford Bronco Badlands Sasquatch manual for a drive. It is toasty today. It is extremely hot. And look at this, just how simple this is. You have a physical specific button toggle for the vents and the airflow, and then you have the dials for the climate control. Very easy to do. So let's have a look at this. Let's start in crawl. I want to try this out and see what this crawl gear is actually about. Okay, so now the clutch is fully disengaged and we're going 3 miles per hour. It means you don't have to work the clutch so much if you have to go slow. You can release the clutch, just have a little bit of gas, and I'm not even touching any pedals right now. We're still going. You can see I don't have any foot on the pedals. Very cool, but let's put it in normal gear mode and put the seatbelt on first of all, and let's go. It's good to be back in a manual. feels great that Ford built a manual for the Bronco, because the size of it, you would expect they would only release it in a automatic, but no, they decided to put a 7-speed, actually, I mean with the crawl gear, manual transmission. So you got 300 horsepower from this inline 4, which doesn't seem too bad at all. Sounds, you know, it doesn't sound, you know, like a sports car, but that's not what this is either. I don't really mind if it doesn't sound too, you know, brutal coming out of the exhaust. It's still a very fun car to drive, this thing, with the manual transmission. And I love that I can see the fenders from here, the old school 70s, 60s fenders from where I'm sitting right now. It's a nice car. I love this Bronco. I loved it from the first time the concept came out and they showed it. I was like, this is gonna be a killer seller, and it's selling really well still. It's a super easy transmission to use. There's no problems there at all. And the ride comfort is pretty good. I have it in normal now, so I don't have it in any specific mode. I love that we have all this open space up here. It's beautiful. Soft top on days like this is exactly what you want, just to take everything off and have the wind blowing in your hair or your face. Every time I jump into a manual, I just always remember how fun manuals are to drive. Even if I'm sitting in an off-roader, it's not about the handling or whatever, but just going through the gears yourself and being in control of that is just, it's just fantastic that they still make manuals today. I think a lot of people are gonna go with this package, the mid package, because I don't think everybody wants to have a, you know, full-size 12-inch gauge cluster, and the seats are manually adjustable, which is totally fine. It's almost a bit refreshing to have these kind of old-school controls in a modern car like this. And it also goes well with the exterior design, which is already old school enough, so why not bring that into the interior as well? Thanks again to Urban Motors for letting me review this beautiful, gorgeous Bronco Badlands Sasquatch. If you're interested in this vehicle or any other vehicle on the lot here, make sure you go to urbanmotors.com and check that out. I'm going to link it down in the description. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you, and I will see you in the next video.